study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best
of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Growing a successful business has never been easy. But whether you're navigating a complex industry or trying to reinvent one, our breadth of banking experts are here to collaborate on market-proven solutions. At KeyBank, we're built to grow with your changing needs because we're not just here for the business you are now, we're here for the business you'll become. Reimagine business as usual. KeyBank opens doors. Learn more at key.com/B2B.
All right. This ain't just a show. This is a platform. Veteran built, battle tested. Welcome to the MisFitNation. Yeah! Mic in the room, built from boots on the ground, now we breaking the rules. 2 vets, 1 leader, painting the sound, turn scars into sermons, let them echo around. Authors with truth, musicians with fire, actors backstage chasing something higher. Entrepreneurs bleeding just to get ahead. If you fought for your dream, yeah, you are what you said. If they told you no, if you still came back, if you fell to your knees but you stayed on track, this is your voice, this is your flame. Say it loud, remember the name. No salvation, just elevation. We rise again. From the fight to the end. We are the MisFitNation. No damn labels, no damn cages. If you're still breathing, you belong. Turn it up, this is our song. Yeah, this is our song. Yeah. Veterans standing with ghosts in the chest. First responders running in while the world second guess. Gold star names carved deep in the soul. Your story ain't over, we carry the whole. Coaches teaching mindset, breaking the chains, turning barely alive into owning the pain. Truth over polish, scars on display. If it's real, let it bleed. That's the misfit play. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels cold. Stop right now, we're the more than you know. Don't walk alone. Veterans press 1, bring it home. Don't trade forever for tonight. You're still needed in this fight. We are the MisFitNation, built from scars and dedication. We rise again. From the fight to the end. We are the MisFitNation. Every voice is vindication. From the silence to the scream, we're strong. Welcome home, you belong. You belong. You belong. All right, you. All right,
you. Woo! All right. Welcome back to the MisFitNation. I hope everyone had a safe weekend and was able to do all the things you wanted to do this weekend with your family, with your friends. And hopefully you remembered what this weekend is all about before you did that stuff or while you did that stuff. Pour a little out for those who are not here no more, those who raised their right hands, those who raised their right hands and then made that ultimate sacrifice from this generation and those generations before us. Some of us did things at the Gardens of Stone today. Some others do it other ways to their homes or with their friends in around their circles. So keep all those families out there that are going through the waves of emotions today in your thoughts, in your prayers. And remember, this isn't just about barbecues today. But welcome back. We bring you real stories of grit, resilience, leadership, and the human spirit that refuses to quit. Today's conversation is unlike most. This is not just a story of a soldier. This is the story of a mother, a Gold Star mother, whose son answered the call to serve this nation after deciding at only 4 years old that he wanted to wear the uniform. 4 years old, let that sink in. PFC Andrew Meari gave his life in Afghanistan on November 1st, 2010, protecting his brothers. But his story didn't end there. His legacy lives through the people he saved, the lives he touched, and through his mother, Denise Williams, who turned unimaginable loss into purpose, advocacy, and healing for veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. This episode is going to be powerful. This one matters. So let's get after it. Welcome, Denise.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. I think the first time I met you was in Gatlinburg.
I think so.
For the Mountain Man March up there. And you and Lisa, we had burritos or something. We had Mexican food and had a couple libations. And then we marched. Yeah. And the next day was a little rough. The next day was a little rough for me and Ramon Bird as we marched the mountains up there. But it was more powerful that we got to meet you and Lisa. Of course, it was the first time me and him both met Lisa after losing Michael. And of course, we learned the story of Andrew a little bit that day, and then a little bit more, I think, at the flag ceremony in St. Louis about a year later. And you were always the voice of reason when Lisa was talking to me. You were always the calming voice around there, and I really appreciated that. And I just want to say thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And I don't know that Lisa's going to appreciate that. If she's she'll watch this now or later, and she'll be cackling with laughter. And Denise is the voice of calm.
Just in those situations. I don't know what you did outside those.
Well, it is it's a redhead thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah. Outstanding. So I gave basically the elevator pitch speech about you and Andrew there. If you want to just go into a little bit about a 4-year-old story is probably the story that's going to rip people's hearts up to the why he wanted to join. And then we'll go forward from there.
Sure. So I had friends that lived in DC area. And back then I worked for airline and travel industry. So I got to fly a lot. And he was a very bougie kid because he flew and had more frequent flyer miles than most adults will ever have.
Wow.
But back in the day, and here's dating myself, round trip airfare for two on our discount, Chicago to DC was $26.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went to DC a lot, to Boston, New York. I mean, any place day tripping. We went to DC and we'd seen the sights, and he was a very serious little guy. And he really, really got into it, and he loved history. And then we went to Arlington and watched the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown. And it wasn't the first time I'd seen it, but it had been so many years, it might as well have been. And as a parent, when you're seeing something through your child's eyes, you see it new anyway. So he was very moved by it. He was very quiet for him, very quiet, because he was a serious little guy, but quiet wasn't a word that you would use around him. And it was sitting on the airplane going home. He looked at me and he said, "Mommy, I'm going to be a soldier." And I said, "Oh, okay. He's 4. And I expected there to be a policeman and a fireman and a doctor and an astronaut phase and all the rest of that. Nope. He was going to be a soldier. When he was about 12, he found out that lawyers make lots of money. So he decided that he was going to be a lawyer too. And then he found out that tax lawyers make some of the most money. So then he decided he's going to be a soldier, and then he's going to go to law school, and he's going to work for the Army and be a lawyer for the Army. And then he's going to get out of the Army, and he's going to make lots and lots of money as a international tax lawyer.
Oh, wow. He had a plan. Wow.
Yeah, the kid definitely did have a plan.
Wow. That's a very elaborate plan too, especially when he knew the money signs behind each job, and at a young age to do that too. Some, like you said, most kids do that: doctor, fireman, maybe a soldier or a veterinarian. Some want to just grow up and do what their favorite person they see every day does. Maybe it's the mailman or the garbage man. Mm-hmm. But to want to be a tax attorney. And that's the hard stuff.
My kid was a capitalist.
Yes, he was.
He truly was.
Definitely was. And that he went to high school, and did he pursue classes to go towards law in high school, or just to
No, Andrew was after a couple of years after he was killed and all you guys came back, one of his NCOs told me that Andrew was the worst barracks soldier that he had. Oh, wow. And the very best field soldier that he had. And that pretty much sums up Andrew's entire life. He was really smart. I mean, scary smart. His friends called him wicked smart, accent on wicked. And he truly was. He was bored sick with school and hated doing homework. He hated all of it just simply because he was bored. I tell this story to explain his entire life and personality. He was second grade, and I got a phone call. This is, late October, from his teacher, and tells me that, he hasn't turned in any homework in 6 weeks. So my first question is, what? He's doing homework every night. I'm checking it and shoving it in his bag. And 2, why am I just hearing about this 6 weeks down the road? So to make a very long story short, it comes down to me finding lots of unfinished or finished homework papers stuffed in the back of his closet. And when asked why, his response at second grade was, Mom, she writes it on the board and I understand it. Then she gives us a practice sheet and I do it and I get them all right. And then she gives us a worksheet and I do it and I get them all right. And then she gives us homework and it's the same thing. How many times do I have to do it? I got it right the first time. I had to leave the room because you can't really argue with that logic. I'm a second grader.
Yeah, I'm laughing because my granddaughter just got out of second grade and she was the same exact way this year. We did this already. I'm not doing it again.
Yep. And okay. But it is definitely his personality. He was going to do things his own way in his own time. He was never a bad kid. Always riding the ragged edge of disaster. Yes. But he was never mean-spirited. He was never really bad or naughty. Well, I shouldn't say that because naughty is a moderate form of bad to us in my household, my family growing up. Naughty is actually something to kind of aspire to. And he was definitely good at that.
That's fine. I'm laughing because it's funny you have those memories of that. And then, I said his legacy lives on. And I know his legacy lives through your actions, through what you do since then. I know you still talk to his brothers and sisters, the brothers that he fought with, the guys he saved in Afghanistan and Kandahar, and everything that led up to that point where you had to become close to them. You might not have been as close to them as you are now if this did not happen. So sometimes these dark clouds give that silver lining. I think
absolutely.
That made this whole new world that you're in now. So you have a whole bunch of little Andrews now that probably were also aspiring to get to that naughty level as well.
It's a contest, I think, amongst his friends and amongst the children of his friends.
Yes.
To see who can be most like their honorary uncle.
Yeah, see, I knew it had to be in there.
Yeah, it's there. It's truth.
So Fort Campbell was his only duty station, was PFC. So he went to Fort Benning for everything for one station.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you go down there for the graduation?
I was there, for the turning blue ceremony, and I had. It was both a wonderful trip and really horrifically awful. February 2008, I guess. I'm really bad on dates and times right anymore. I call it, that's part of grief brain. There's a fog on lots of stuff. So coming from Chicago, going to Georgia, one would think it would be a little warmer. No, they had one of the worst cold snaps of all time. It was 18 degrees. Wow. And Fort Benning it's not exactly an indoor climate controlled space.
No.
I just about froze to death. I was looking forward to meeting his drill instructor and he had told me that his drill instructor wanted to meet me. And when I did, he walked out, introduced me, and he said, "Wait a minute, are you Private Meari's mom?" And because Mary was his nickname amongst others. And he said, "I wanted to shake the hand of the woman of the soldier that I couldn't smoke. The kid's a duck. No matter what, it just rolls off his back."
Wow.
And if you can recall, and anybody else that served knows that sometime in around the second or third week, maybe the drill instructors start to have fun with you. And theirs said, "Well, you can't have any fatty cakes, but I really like Snickers bars. So if you want to send Snickers bars, have somebody send Snickers bars and you send enough for the unit, then, or your squad at least, then I'll let you guys have them." And I got that letter one day, and I really questioned that. And then the next day I got the next letter. It was probably a day or two later. "Mom, please tell me you didn't send any Snickers." Well, it was a trap. Yeah. But what he got instead was he got the empty Snickers wrappers inside the envelope.
Wow.
And his drill instructors really appreciated that. They thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I kind of felt that coming, and that's my mom used to send me stuff all the time, like cookies and popcorn and things in a box, and it would come just crushed. And they give it to you. "Here, have at it." Yep. Thanks a lot, guys. This is awesome. My morale's so high right now. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were happy at least. So you nearly froze to death at Fort Benning, 18 degrees in Sand Hill.
18 degrees. Oh.
Beautiful place. It's not fun at any weather in Fort Benning. And I think the only indoor place now is the museum, and I think the Hampton Inn that's right next to it now. So.
Yeah. The museum is beautiful. If you haven't been to the National Infantry Museum, then it's they've got an entire squad, life-size representative of individuals outside, bronze statues, and it's really moving and it's really amazing. I was fortunate to be there at the grand opening of the inauguration when it was finally expanded and rededicated and all of that, and that was very cool. I think that was 2015 or 2016. Again, dates, not good at them anymore.
Yes, I think I went down there just after that probably 2018. I went down there when I started this job. I went down there because I had to learn to teach the job I was doing, and it had to be at Fort Benning for whatever reason. And I stayed there, and all the people were still going to the museum, and so there's like 2 rooms left in that hotel, and I was lucky to get one of them.
Yeah,
so I was just happy to be. And there was a graduation that weekend, so everyone was at Fort Benning. So I said, "This is the worst timing ever to be here." But at least you can go downtown and get Chinese food, so that's good.
Yeah, well, yeah. We weren't there long enough for that because we did that, and then it was get on an airplane, fly back to Chicago, and then found out that he was going to be going to Fort Campbell, and I didn't know if he was going to ride back or he was going to, how that was going to work. And he didn't know either. They didn't say anything. They don't tell them much of anything to start out with, just because I think it's fun for them. It messes up parents a little bit, but that's okay. We get over it. So then I got back to Chicago, and back then my mom was still alive, but she wasn't able to fly, and she really wanted to go down and see. He's her first grandchild. So I got home, got out of, hit the airport, drove home, unpacked and repacked a suitcase, drove back an hour north, picked up my mother, and drove straight to Fort Campbell. We spent like 2 days down there with him, and dinner and, and all of that stuff. Saw a little bit of Nashville, saw a little bit of Fort Campbell, got back in the car and drove back home. And by the time I got back to Chicago, I had double pneumonia.
Good God.
It was the best and the worst trip.
That's the worst trip ever. Wow.
Yeah.
Horrible.
But I spent lots of time going down there. I went down there a bunch of times, long weekends, or he would come home.
So you got to see it when you weren't miserable and sick at the time. So at better times as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, the new museum here opened just last weekend. They finally opened the Wings. The Wings of Liberty Museum is finally open. It's about 3 times the size of the old museum here on Post, and it's really well done. So if you get a chance, come back down and check it out.
Yeah, and every now, Lisa and I talk about when our next trip is. We went down, I think 3 years ago for the Week of the Eagles, and we had a blast. Which sounds, it sounds so incongruous to say 2 Gold Star mothers showed up at Fort Campbell and we had a blast. Our escorts probably had the time of their lives as well. We stayed in the cottages outside of Gate 10, the little camping cottages there. Highly recommend it. Perfect and ideal. And a friend of yours, Ed, he was NCOIC of Rear D during your deployment. So, and I don't want to say names because I don't, necessarily, but he was going to meet us down there and he pulled our escorts aside and he's like, all right, guys, these are not your typical Gold Star mothers. They're not going to be sitting and holding their hands and crying. They're just not going to. That's not who they are. They're strong women. They cry in private. They're here because they both, love everything the military has done for them. And truly, I can't say enough good things about my experiences with Fort Campbell and with the Army in general, with one caveat we'll get to. But it's impossible to describe the care and the concern with which we are treated. Yep. It's beyond anything that I could possibly have imagined. And it's something that I don't think you can really understand until you're either doing an escort duty or you're one of us. And I don't want you to be one of us. So we were...
they got the system down here pretty, due to so many of us, so many of our brothers and sisters being lost. The system is pretty well oiled here, and they know how to take care of the Gold Stars. The whole family, yes. The Gold Stars, not just the moms, but the kid, the brothers, sisters, everybody. And then the escorts are really given pretty good briefs on what to and not to do. And then, of course, when they make Gold Star moms like you and Lisa, all those protocols usually go out the window, and they learn new protocols from you guys. But they still stay on task enough to get you where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And we wanted to see this, and we had given them kind of a list. Okay, I want to see this museum. I want to see this monument. I want to see this, and a whole bunch of different stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to go over to Special Forces Group, which I know is restricted area and all the rest of that. The reasoning is that I think he was Major Paul Syverson. He was with Delta. He was killed in action in Iraq, and I want to say 2005. I'm not 100% sure, but his parents don't live far from me and had become very good friends. And I wanted to go down to their area, and I wanted to see the memorials and take photos and stuff like that for them. I know they had been there. I knew by that point they were both, older and not in the best health, and they weren't going to be making another trip. So I wanted to take pictures from them for them and to do that. So we had to get special permissions and all of that. And our escorts were not allowed ever to set foot inside that compound. But now they had to because they were our escorts.
Right.
And those 2 kids, I swear, they looked like they were scared to death. They were both trying out for Captain America that day. They were so buttoned down and tight as could possibly be. It was cute because by then, we'd spent like 2 days already with them. And Lisa kept saying, if you guys don't lighten up, I swear I'm going to do something to you to make you. And just,
wow.
Yeah, it was something else. And we went in there, and the one had said, one of the guys had said that, he was putting in his packet, he wanted to try out, and that's what he wanted to do. So while we were in there, and I was talking with the colonel, and he was being very kind and all that, and walked us around, and there's a grove of trees and all of that stuff for those guys, and there's all kinds of stuff. And I got to see, all of that stuff. And I said, by the way, this is, and I introduced him, and I said, and he just, he told me that he's really looking forward to. And I know that for character, I can absolutely vouch for his character. He has been outstanding as an escort. And we got back in the vehicle, and it was like somebody took all of the calcium out of their bones, because they both went, oh, ma'am, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, well,
Had to help.
Whatever I can do.
That's right.
After all you guys have done for us. We just had a good time.
Yeah, 5th Group has a really good setup over there for all their guys, all the tree for each one of them, both lost in combat, lost in training. And then, of course, the V from the Twin Towers that's still there. And they just redid all that. They cleaned it up and really made it nicer again. So if you get back down there, you'll see that they've changed it up a little bit and made it a lot cleaner, a new walk around it. It's real nice now.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. So since that trip, Major Syverson's mom has passed away. And that was very hard. An incredibly lovely lady. And Paul was their only child. And everybody knows who he is because he was part of the 12 strong. He was part of the very first boots on the ground in 2001.
Wow.
The book and the movie, and he's in there.
Yeah. My coworker was a sergeant major over in 5th Group. And he doesn't like talking about anything. He doesn't think anything they did is special, because that's just how he is. He thinks they just did their jobs. And because they're saying, and that's how that whole breed is. And they don't brag about stuff. They're not SEALs. So they don't brag about stuff. Most of them don't write books except 12 strong.
Yes. So, yeah. They're the quiet professionals. Yes.
They actually are the quiet professionals.
Yes. For real. And I totally respect and admire that. And I think that, all of the active duty warriors and veterans that I've met, the ones that are quiet and the ones that aren't bragging are generally the ones that have seen and done the most.
Mostly. Yeah. Those are the guys that you want to sit and pick their brain a little bit and see what they'll share. Because most won't share a lot, but they'll share enough to let you know, just like you said. They'll let the closet that open a little bit to let you know what they've seen and maybe some of the things they did or a place they went to. And that just opens that bigger picture for you and let your imagination go wild.
Yeah. And it's something that I have learned from all of the guys that I've known and all the people that I've known primarily through Fort Campbell that have taught me about just simply providing the space to listen. And I know that I learned this early on, that mom is a different thing. Now you can't tell your mom,
right? But
everybody wants to tell somebody. Everybody wants to be able to talk and to say the worst things that they've seen, the worst things that have happened, and not be judged and not be pitied, but have it heard and respected and, hold it for them. And it's truly been a privilege of mine to be able to do that.
And I think that's 100% correct. Even when I got wounded, I couldn't call my mom. Or I called home, but I couldn't tell mom. I had to talk to dad and tell him what happened, because he would understand, because he was in the Army, and she would have just started cursing at me or tell me I did something wrong. That's why it happened, or why didn't you protect yourself? And it would have been a lot worse for me at that point. So tell dad, let him break it in easy to her, and then I'll call back and see how she is.
There you go.
Because even after he told her, she got so upset she fell and broke her wrist.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was just after him breaking it to her the nice way, without just the way I would have said it. Yeah, I got wounded, I'm okay, and that wouldn't have went over well either. So at least it was his idea.
Yeah, Andrew didn't have that kind of filter with me. So, yeah, he called me the first time that he how shall I say it, discharged his weapon with intended effect, and described it and told me all about it. And, OPSEC, it didn't exist. The kid told me everything he wasn't supposed to tell me. He told me everything. And It was more about, let me back it up and explain it this way. So I believe as parents, we're the maestro of our children's lives. We have the baton. When he went into the Army and he's in basic training, and I could see in his letters and I could hear how he has changed and grown. And Providence gave me the gift of recognizing my job was, in a sense, done. Everything he has experienced in his life up until that point, I had experienced the same or similar through my life. But now he's going to be doing and experiencing things that I never did, and I can only just very vaguely imagine. So it was time for me to lay down the baton. And I had told him that I am no longer the conductor. I am no longer the maestro. I am now front and center, orchestra, greatest fan. I will always be here. You fall off the stage, I'm going to catch you. But now I get to be the fan of you. I get the joy of watching you and seeing who you become. And I can't tell you where that came from. I'm not some genius Buddhist queen that figured this all out. It was truly just a gift that I received. And it's probably the thing that saved my sanity.
Wow. That's amazing. And so when he got told he's going to Afghanistan, so that was going to be his first trip, right? So 2010 was the big surge into Afghanistan, into Kandahar, especially. 101st was going to be the tip of the spear down there. 2nd Brigade strike was going to take over from the Arghandab River Valley all the way west to Helmand Province, basically.
Yeah.
And 5 Deuce was going to be in the tip of the spear. How did you feel when he told you that's where he was going?
I was probably a little neurotic, but I was absolutely certain he was going to come home and he'd be okay. He might get a little injured. He might get a Purple Heart, but he was going to come home because this was this kid that had all of these plans. Right. He was special. He was going to come home and to do these things. So I never worried. I would watch the news, 24/7, back when CNN was really the 24/7 news. I worked from home then. So I would have news going, and I'd have social media, and I'd have Messenger, and there'd be a TV on as I'm working 24/7. And I never worried. I'd see stuff going on. I'd know that was approximately where he was, or it wasn't where he was, and whatever. I never doubted for a moment that he was coming home and that he would be okay. So, parents now, I know, so many others that their kids have joined since, and they talk about, how scary it is. If you let yourself be terrified by it, you will be terrified by it. But the truth is, there is absolutely nothing that you can do. And the best way to support them is to make them not worry about you and worry about what you're feeling or thinking or hearing or any of that. They're going to come home. And the reality is, there was, 1.3 million deployed from 9/11 until 2021. 7,026, is it? Just over 7,000 were killed. The odds are more than in your favor that your child is going to come home. It's an anomaly when they don't. So how do you want to spend the next 6-9 months, however long it's going to be? And something I tell clients a lot, and it's something that I've really worked hard on to try to get an orientation for people, is people think that, well, if I think about it and I worry about it and I plan for it and, play the anxiety game, that if the worst happens, I'll be prepared for it. No, you won't. No. You won't. There is no preparation. And all you've managed to do is ruin today and tomorrow and the next day until the worst happens, on the extreme off chance that it does. Anxiety is the thief of the future.
Yes. 100%. That's amazing that someone else has got to say it on here now instead of me. So thank you. I tell people you can't worry about control what you can't control. Don't try to control everyone else's boat. You can't sail a boat if you're not the captain. Just go ride the waves, and when you're in control, you can take the rudder and do what you can do.
And you're only in control of yourself anyway. Yeah. You can't control anything else or anyone else, but you can control you. And that's the whole point for parents. That's the whole point for anybody in any situation. All you can control is your actions. And I don't say reactions, I say actions, because no matter what happens, you get to make a choice how to act. And when we remember that, what we're doing simultaneously is we're taking our emotion brain offline and we're putting our thinking brain online, automatically, instantly starting to reduce anxiety. So here's the little therapist tip for the day.
Thank you. See, had a counselor on last night, a little therapist tip now. I'm getting all overwhelmed this week. This is great. I don't have to go see mine now. It's good. All right, Denise. So now we got him in Afghanistan, and by his calls or his text back to you via messenger, wherever he was able to do where he was, that things are pretty hot there. It's a hot zone, and it's ramping up. And as we get through the summer was really bad. We got hitting. Our sergeant major got hit. He had to get evacuated. We lost the first PAO in the Army during the whole WAT during that time. We lost the first chaplain during that time. Then we go into the operation that started, I believe, in September, went into December, and things were really kinetic and things were getting hot. Yeah. How were you feeling at those points as it ramped up?
Honestly, the same. Operation Dragon Strike was in full swing. Last week of August and early September, first week of September, he was home on his mid-tour. Okay. So I had lots of opportunity to have conversations and ask him about things. And it disturbed me. It was a solemn realization that the last vestiges of my little boy were gone. And in front of me is now a warrior, a battle-tested warrior. He was still the same. He still had that same goofiness and zest for life and wanting to have fun. But it was, and in one of our conversations, I had told him it's almost like it was a little manic, that he was trying to get as much fun and as much time in as he possibly could. There are some people that go home on their mid-tour and do nothing but sleep. He didn't sleep because I didn't. He could go out every night with his friends. Perfectly fine. Here's the keys. Have a good time. Don't be stupid. Call me if needs be, or I'll drive you anywhere, do anything. But you're mine during the day. And that means you're upright and awake. And we're just going to spend time together. We're going to visit. We were going to, have something to eat, cook, whatever he wanted to do. But I wanted him, he didn't get to sleep all day and go out all night. So he certainly wasn't going to give up going out all night. And I didn't give him a choice on sleeping all day. So the kid just didn't sleep for the 10 days that he was home. Basically, he's like, yeah, it's a very long flight. I'll sleep on the plane home back to the sandbox. Okay. And then a week and a half later, he turned 21 in Afghanistan. And that was hard. That was sad for me because it was a milestone birthday. Yeah.
That's one of the big ones. 18, so we can vote. 16, I guess. I don't know what the age to drive in Chicago. Probably 17 up there, but then 18 to vote, and then 21 to be the legal guy.
Yeah. Legal guy. Yeah. Well, personally, I'm of the opinion, and popular or not popular, doesn't matter. If the United States government says that you are old enough to put an automatic weapon in your hands, you can have a beer.
Or 20. That's how it is. As platoon sergeant, as squad leader, I always tell my guys, if you're going to drink, just don't do it in public. Just drink. I know you drink. I drank when I was in your shoes. I drank.
Uh-huh.
If you want to come to my house and drink, Drink at my house. I know you're safe.
Yeah, I would never admit to facilitating any drunkenness amongst the squad at the Holiday Inn outside of Gate 7, where I'd get a couple of rooms. I would never.
Never.
No.
But it helps their morale a lot more than people imagine. So
Absolutely. It's a combination of being able to let loose and be safe and be trusted.
Yes.
All at the same time. And there was a limit to the trust. You had to give up the keys.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to leave.
Because I'm sure there was some that just, no matter what, wanted to leave, no matter what.
They could. My answer was, it's good to want things that'll build character.
It'll grow on you later. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So
unless they had a taxi or somebody to drive them back. No.
Yeah.
Go sleep in the bathtub. I don't care.
Definitely. Yeah. Bathtubs, I mean, they're comfortable when you're passed out drunk anyway. It don't matter.
Yeah. And honestly, there was never anything. It never got that bad. And I know that the presence of mom kind of put a little damper on how far they went and how bad they got anyway. Just because I was still a mom.
Yeah. No matter what, you're always going to be the mom there.
Mm-hmm.
You're the official mom of the squad at that point. So,
well, yeah. Buy pizza, snacks, and I, again, would not necessarily go and purchase alcohol knowing that underage people would drink it. That just,
it's immoral.
That would be a terrible thing to do.
Yes. We all know that. So he's back in. He's 21 now, and Dragon Strike is Dragon Strike 1, Dragon Strike 2. So by November is what 2, I believe, at that point. So we're at the beginning of the move. So
yeah,
right when this was going on. When was his last call home?
Actually, I talked to him the night before. It was Halloween,
Yep.
and I got up, as sometimes I did, but this night I happened to get up, and it was, didn't want to sleep. Got up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, something here, and went and got online just to see if he was online. Sometimes he was, and if he was, and almost immediately he sends a message, "Mom, what's going on? Why are you up? It's the middle of the night." And we just chatted back and forth a little bit, and then I'm pretty sure he was having multiple simultaneous conversations. So I didn't get a response to my last. I think I'd asked him a question, and that's going to stay between me and God and him. And I didn't get a response. Well, sometimes comms went down. He was at a cop. So you were at the fob, weren't you? Up the road?
Yeah, right at the big fob.
You were at the big fob, and he was at the cop down the road. And, comms could go out. It happened before, so didn't really think about it. And the next day I got up, and again, I worked from home. So in the middle of the day, I was having lunch, and I somehow managed to pop a cap off of a tooth.
Oh, wow.
As I was eating, I think, like a peanut butter sandwich. So I'd called the dentist and told and got in to the dentist at I think that they closed at 4:30 or no, I take that back. I think they closed at 4. And I said, I can get there barely. I just need this thing put back in, just run in and out. And the dentist is 7 minutes from my house. So 4 o'clock, I got off, I finished up, I got out a few minutes early, but I was covering for somebody else. So I had to be available. And I just, 5 minutes or so, I just cut out and grabbed my keys, jumped in the car, and I raced down the road to the dentist. And as I'm sitting at the dentist's office, I'm still checking on social media because I haven't heard from him since our abbreviated conversation the night before. And, I'd been checking off and on all day, and I hadn't heard from him. So I was sitting in the dentist's chair, and the hygienist was I'm like, oh, I can't get a signal. And she said, yeah, because we use x-rays in here. You can't get a signal in here. I'm like, okay, well, makes sense. And then as I was checking out of the dentist's, my phone now has signal, and I got a phone call from my mom who said, Andrew's dad's calling me, and he's trying to get your number. And I'm like, he's got my number. What? So I walked outside and I called, and I was informed he's dead. They killed him.
Jeez.
And that was my notification.
Wow. So it wasn't a knock on the door. It was a...
No, it was a mess.
Yeah.
And it's why Ed became my brother, because there was so much that had happened. I mean, I have sporadic memories of things. I know that there were police that were called and a fire truck and an ambulance that was there. And because there's some woman hysterically screaming in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that a couple of people were passing out flyers on all the parked cars in the parking lot for some military benefit or something, some veteran organization or whatever. And one of those people, woman, came up, and I was, I'm screaming, yelling, trying to talk and all that. And I had always had Andrew's dog tags in my purse. I took them off of his neck at Fort Benning. And he's like, Mom, I need those. And I said, go get another pair. These are mine. And they were in my purse, and they're the ones I still wear every day around my neck. And I pulled them out. So, and she's like, her husband was in the reserves, and she's trying to get hold of you or Red Cross for me. And I've got the phone number for FRG. And I've also got the unit phone number down at battalion down for the 1st 502nd, right? So I called that number. And I do not know exactly what was said. I don't know exactly what I said. Something to the effect of, I just got a phone call. This is not how this happens. What the heck is going on here? I don't understand. And I know the story a little bit. I can give you pieces, because I was told later there was some poor private that had gotten that phone call, freaked out. Ma'am, I need to put you on hold. Ma'am, I need to put you on hold. Now, part of the story that I was told later is, just imagine, now you know the setup down there, and you see this young private racing down the hall to the NCOIC's office, who is then turning around and racing back to get to the phone, picks up the phone, and he's asking me questions. And to this day, that man will not tell me exactly what I said, but I am sure there was nothing polite or ladylike in it. Finally got hold of my family. I'm sorry?
Sure, he just absorbed it.
Yeah, he just got hold of the family. My family, they came and got me, met me in the parking lot, said, take her home, take her home, take her home. We got home, and it turns out my casualty team was literally sitting around the corner down the street from my house when I went zipping out.
Oh, wow.
So what had happened was, now since then, Big Army did change the way notifications are handled. And I've actually been part of some of the casualty notification team and casualty assistance officer team trainings with National Guard locally. And rule number 1 is, if you have to sit on them, you do not allow the family, the first notification team, when there's 2, you do not allow them out of your sight. You don't allow them to make a phone call, post on social media, nothing, until the second team has an opportunity or has completed their mission, just to guarantee that this never happened. Because in addition to me getting the phone call, there was also a social media post that was put out right away. So my notification team was here, and they had just left the house, and then my phone rang, and it was one of Andrew's childhood friends. And this is kids in the neighborhood. They've been together since 3rd grade. There's a core group of them, and screaming, Mom, tell me it's not true. Tell me it's not true. Mom, what the heck? Well, and not those words. And the answer was, okay, where are you? And someone's going to come get you. And, within the next hour, I had probably 15 kids or young adults, 18 to 22-year-olds in my house, because the word went out immediately, and everybody it's like, yeah, tell them all to come here. What else do we do? And I had called one of my girlfriends, lived down the street. My Andrew and her kids grew up together, and I called her, and she's forgiven me since, but I called her and I just said, I need you to come. I need you to come right now. And I said, Andrew was killed. I need you to come. And she screamed and repeated. Her kids were screaming, and she was at the door in 10 minutes and didn't leave my side for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Until all the way through the funeral services and all the way through all of that. My casualty notification team was absolutely amazing. I had a sergeant first class and a captain who was a chaplain. And he's actually a chaplain at a military school not far from here. Or he's a Catholic priest, I should say, at a military school not far from here. And that was my notification team. And I now know what was going on behind the scenes. They were livid, absolutely livid, because the things that went wrong continued to go wrong for the next couple of days. And like I said, there's been a lot of changes. So it was the knock on the door. I knew they were coming.
Yeah.
Because I knew they were coming because I knew it was true. I knew that the way I was told and how and all of the rest of that stuff was wrong. But I knew. So when the team got there and I saw them, it was like that final piece that said, yes, this is real. Because I think some small part of me was holding out hope that it wasn't real. And that's, as a matter of fact, I do remember. I remember wandering around that parking lot. At first, I couldn't find my car, and then somebody took the keys away from me, so I couldn't get in my car. And I'm wandering around looking for my keys and looking for my car, and I kept saying, "It's a mistake. It's a mistake. This is a mistake." And it was a mistake, but it was also true.
Wow.
So Ed made himself, when I went down for the week of the Eagle, or the Eagle Remembrance ceremonies that were done, he made himself my personal escort. I did not know at the time that that was a big deal. I do know that there were privates and specialists scurrying around me a lot and running in every direction. And Ed was going to make absolutely certain, again, nothing else was going to go wrong for Mom. And that was part of that care and that absolute envelopment of support that whoever the many probably that are designing this and that are understanding this, I hope that they know how meaningful it is. It makes the difference between sanity and insanity.
Yeah. It can keep you from going over the bridge or over the cliff, for that matter.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, that's a shock and awe way to find out for you. I don't think it's any easier to get the knock on the door. Yeah, but I wasn't in the shoes, but I'm sure those who got the knock on the door, it's also this ain't real, no. And but at least you have the 2 or maybe 3 dudes in uniform that maybe they're to hold you up and take you to a seat and make sure you're okay, and not just kind of you in a parking lot yelling and screaming, not really losing your mind, but yelling and screaming.
Oh, I lost my mind. I recall having literally face down on the asphalt. I recall that. But
I mean, the next couple of weeks are a blur, probably because you're going through the notification and going through all the steps for everything to receive him back. And
yeah,
did you go to Dover for the ceremony as well?
Yeah. Went to Dover and came back. When I got back, I actually stayed at my mom's house instead of coming home because media circus was unbelievable. Andrew was the first soldier from this area killed since Vietnam.
Wow. So
it was a big deal. And every news station, it was wild. Indescribable. Couple of moments that I remember being my your casualty assistance, your casualty notification team are different than your casualty assistance officer. And this is a stroke of genius. The casualty notification team, many families don't ever want to see those individuals again. Those are the individuals that gave them the worst news of their life, destroyed their world. So the casualty assistance officer can now be seen as this neutral, helpful, supportive person that doesn't have any stigma attached to him.
Right.
or her. And my guy was a absolute godsend, amazing human being. One moment I remember is we were at the funeral parlor, sitting in the funeral director's office, and I didn't know anything. I was just basically, somebody would ask me a question, I would look at him, and he'd say yes or no or whatever, and I'd say, oh, okay, because I'm in a daze, yes. I'm in a fog, yes. My brain is not firing on all cylinders, yes. And I have everything, the world I knew ceased to exist. And I have now landed as a alien planet existence that I had no idea how to navigate. So we're sitting in the office there, and I remember the funeral director saying, I was contacted by this group. They're called the Patriot Guard Riders, and they wanted to know if you would like to have them as an escort. And I look over, and my CAO is saying, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I said, okay. And another moment he had asked me that same thing, what is it you want? And I said, I want the world to stop. I just want the world to stop just for a moment and understand that everything is different. There's a light that is missing from our world. I just want everything to stop for a minute. When Andrew was brought into Midway Airport, and if you know Chicago area at all, Midway is on the southwest side of the city. The motorcycles were there, the people were there. I was only partially aware of all of that. And then we were driving on the highway, and it's a major highway. And I suddenly realized there's no other cars. They had shut the highway down.
Wow.
For our procession. And this is through Chicago. Every single overpass, every single bridge along the sides of the road, there are fire trucks and police cars and lights going and flags up and people everywhere, just everywhere we turned. And once we come into, this was originally a very small town where I am. It's a little bit bigger now. And we went through town, and there's a nursing home and all the residents from the nursing home, and they're standing there, and you see these old men that are standing in front of their wheelchairs saluting. And then we're going past the grammar school, and you're seeing all of the kids out there, and stores. Every inch of the roadway was just filled. And there's a lot of open back then, particularly, that's 15 years. There was more open area than there is even now. And then we looped through the high school, his high school, through the parking lot. The entire student body was out in the parking lot holding flags.
Wow.
And every single business along the roads, along the streets, just people that had strollers, people that had been sitting and waiting. And literally, I think 3 months ago now, maybe 2.5 months ago, I met somebody who remembers where they were standing watching his procession.
Oh my. Wow.
There were the funeral, the wake itself was, again, I have flashes of memory. I don't remember a whole lot of that. And later, there were only a couple of reporters that, my family had decided that they had been respectful. They weren't being overly intrusive and all of that. And I had contacted my brother. I have an older brother, and I contacted him right when I got back from Dover, and I asked him if he would be the media spokesperson. And he said, okay. I had like 25 voicemails on my phone. I don't know how they all got my phone number, my cell phone number, but I just kept giving him, and he handled it all. But one of the reporters had written an article for the Tribune that it was a 15-mile drive from the funeral home to Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, where he'd be interred, and the procession was 3 miles long.
Wow.
It's being aware of that and seeing all of that was really impactful, and it mattered. When we were on that highway and I realized that the whole highway was shut down, and I was just in awe. And my CAO turned to me, and this guy's built like a fire hydrant, and Ranger long tab, Sergeant first class, all that, and a bag of fries. And he's got tears streaming down his face. And he said, "You got your wish. The world has stopped."
Wow. Whew. That's amazing. Wow. And for him to break, you broke a big man. So
that big man broke a bunch of times. He was a wonderful human being. There were a couple of times that he broke, and I'm just okay. When a man like that is staring at you with tears running down his face and asking you or begging you to do something or to not do something, you just say, okay. Because I don't know what this means, really, whatever this was, but he did.
Right. See, my brother just chimed in. He's sitting there in tears. So, you broke him too. So.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. And I said it's harder for some people to hear than it is for me to say. But the truth of the matter is, I say it the way I say it because as much as it doesn't choke me up like it once did, what it fills me with is gratitude and awe. You said something a little while ago, Rich, that, how the world has changed for me because of my son's death. And I look at it as, this is the world my son gave me. Yeah. And I am in awe.
His legacy lives now. So that's what this is.
Yeah. It's doing the things that he always would want me to do. I was supposed to be the cool mom. He called me Psycho Mom. That was his nickname for me. Psycho Mom. Yesterday, I was at a barbecue with his friends. His childhood friends have an annual barbecue, PFC Andrew Meari Memorial Barbecue every year. And there are 4 couples, and they all went to school together with Andrew.
Oh, wow.
And married, kids, houses in the area, everybody. It's, in that sense, we did get kind of the Mayberry existence. It's only 50 miles from Chicago, but we still got a little bit of the Mayberry thing. And we were just joking about it yesterday. Psycho Mom. Psycho Mom was, my mom's really cool right up until she isn't.
She's not with her anymore. She changes.
Yeah. And it's, everything was really cool until you stepped that far over the line. And then Psycho Mom was, no. And yank them back. And unfortunately for Andrew and all of his buddies, I had to yank those guys back on a fairly regular basis.
You learned them some lessons, though.
And they still brag about them.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Sometimes being the Kool-Aid house, the Kool-Aid mom is a harder job than the actual mom. So, and our mom and dad had that job, the Haley Kool-Aid house, and they also got the discipline. Well, back then you could discipline everyone's kids, so it was good.
Oh, I disciplined them. I had no problem with that. I'd yell at all of them. And
beautiful times.
It truly was. And my son just would stand there and he'd roll his eyes. And he was probably in 5th grade, and him and his buddies got into something. And I don't remember. I think they'd made a mess in the kitchen or whatever. And I'd walked in and I'm like, what the hell, guys? And, the others freeze and their eyes get really big. And my kid is just standing there making a sandwich. He's, oh, don't worry about it. If she's yelling, you're fine. If she gets quiet, run.
Oh, wow.
I had to turn around and leave the room because I bust out laughing. I thought, I nailed.
He got you again there. So you got through the initial wave with the CAO and getting through the procession, through the funeral. And then I'm sure you came back to here to Fort Campbell when we all came home, April-ish time frame for the big welcome home thing. I'm
Yeah.
sure that was an even bigger wave for you, seeing the guys that you had in that hotel room with you out there that were with Andrew when it happened and learning the actual story. How did that play out for you?
Well, I had learned a lot of the story beforehand because I had gotten some phone calls from others in the unit. And I remember the very first phone call I got was probably on like day 4. And I kept asking, and they couldn't tell me anything. They wouldn't tell me anything. But I'm running down the names. I'm like, and is he okay? And I knew Jonathan Curtis was killed. I met his family at Dover. I knew that there were 2 others who had been severely injured. They were going to be okay, but they had been, and I couldn't get the names. They wouldn't tell me anything. So I'm going through the list and trying to find out. And then little by little, I would hear from some of the other guys. And then a couple of them came home on their mid tours in December, and they didn't live too far from here. So they came and visited me, and I heard some of the more details. So by the time, and then, I don't know if they do this anymore, but I read the after actions. So I read all the after action reports.
Okay.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then I read the autopsy, Andrew's autopsy, and that's a unique experience.
Probably not
I read it once and I put it aside, and I read it again, I think almost a year later, and it's in a box in the attic. Back then, and I don't know if they still do this, but they offer you the autopsy photos.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the ones that my casualty assistance officer was literally tears streaming, begging me not to request them to let them be destroyed, because in part of it, and it wasn't because of this, but he was going to have to see them first before I could see them. And truthfully, now I know that was a better decision to make for myself. But I made that decision at the time because I realized I'm going to be able to sustain anything, because this is the worst thing that can happen. Nothing else can happen to me in my life that will ever be as bad as this. He was my only child. He was my reason for existing for 21 years. I have no reason to exist anymore. I have no purpose. There's nothing else that can happen to me. So I'm going to be able to sustain this, but I couldn't do it to him. I could not do it to the casualty assistance officer, because he would have had to see the photos first. Right. So I didn't see the photos. The upshot is that by the time the unit had gotten home, I'd heard most of it in detail, because again, the after action reports were pretty detailed, and it was after action reports of the guys that were outside the wire, as well as the guys in the COP. And I don't know that if you know, or if it was ever said, or I did explain it at all, but they were returning from a foot patrol, and they were coming up out of the field, and Afghan Highway 1 was about a 30-degree incline up from the field. And then the COP was another 30-degree incline. At the top of that was where the COP was. They're down in the field, motorcycles coming down the road. Squad stops, squad leader stops the squad. Everybody takes a knee, takes position. And Andrew was the RTO. So Andrew was right there in the front, and the squad leader, and they checked the bike, and everything seemed, there was no obvious wires, nothing obvious as a problem or whatever. The Afghan rider on the bike shook the hand of the squad leader, and something happened from the way his body was positioned and the attitude of his weapon. Andrew had stepped into it. And so the motorcycle was perpendicular to him. And when it exploded, the explosion, like in a cone, it goes in each direction. So on the other side of the road is where Specialist Curtis was. He got taken down on that side. Andrew was on this side. The rest of the squad was back in the field, with the exception of there was a guy in the front and the back. Both of them were severely injured. But because he was right there, he absorbed the majority of the impact. That detonation was a signal for an all-out attack on the COP. Yeah. So they're taking fire from, again, I'm told, not being dramatic, but I'm told that they were taking fire from 7 directions. They were completely exposed. And Andrew's body was lying on the side of the road, or just off on the side of the road. And the squad took a knee around him, and they were going to protect his body and returning fire. And it was about 45 minutes before inside the cop knew that there were men outside the wire. And then the cop emptied and everybody came out of the base. And a couple of the people, I can say Jimmy K because that's his nickname. It's not his full name. Jimmy K was a contractor. He told me every detail of the story. The guy that was at the front of the bike, Sergeant Felipe Pereira, he told me every detail of the story, including what happened to him. Specialist Phil Wasaki, I think it was Private Phil Wasaki at that time, was at the back of the bike. He told me, I mean, so many individuals face to face told me, in addition to the AARs that I read, and it's significant because Sergeant Phil Wasaki was a 19-year-old kid and he received a Silver Star for his actions that day. Sergeant Felipe Pereira received the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions that day. It was a really big deal, I guess is the nicest, simplest way to put it. So when they all got back, I had contacted FRG again, and by then I was on first name basis with everybody. And I said that I wanted to be there when they redeployed. And at first there was a little bit of a hesitancy. It's like, having mom there. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. They need to get off that airplane. They need to see me standing on that tarmac, cheering and celebrating every one of them that comes home. They need this. Again, this is never going to get better for me. This is never going to get easier. But they're kids. They cannot carry this. I cannot let them carry it. It's mine. They can't take that from me. It's mine to carry, not theirs. So I was there for the Rear D, for the redeployment. And then I think that Ed made it, and I don't know who else was there, but made it mandatory fun time because I said I wanted to have everybody that, for Old Chicago, I think is the name of the pizza place. It was just off base.
Yep.
We went there and I ended up with probably 30 people there. And a couple of them came with their wives and their kids. And I got this young kid standing there with his infant in his arms, telling me that my son was his hero, that he's holding his baby because of my son. And I've got another one telling me that it makes no logical sense how it is that they were exposed and taking fire from 7 directions and nobody got so much as a graze. That he said that, he believed Andrew was protecting them as they were protecting Andrew's body.
Yes.
Moments like that, how can you feel other than gratitude?
Wow. Yeah. 100%. And I like the fact that you made it mandatory for you to be there so that they would see you standing up, standing tall when they came off the plane. And that you knew it would help them, and they probably didn't understand at the time how much it helped them to see you there. They just seen, yes, she's here. Awesome. I'm glad to see her. I don't have to wait to see her. She's here. But at that moment of you being there and standing tall and being there for them as much as they were coming off the plane and was helping you as well, as knowing that they all came home. Yeah. It was a dual purpose to that, but it really helped them more than you'll ever know.
I do hope so, because it's what I wanted to do. And I will admit that was one of the hardest things I've done. Yeah. That's the moment of the mantra running through your head. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. And it was hard. And there was a lot of the guys, they had a hard time talking to me for a while. And a couple of them were pretty deep in their cups that night of mandatory fun time, at dinner, before they could really talk to me. And I remember the manager at that place was getting a little bit nervous and, well, is everybody here 21?
Sure.
they just came back from Afghanistan. They can do whatever they want. Here's my card. Let me know if it goes over like 600 or whatever. Whatever the number I said, just they eat and they drink whatever they want. And it was during that time that I found out the power of mom and the weight that Gold Star mom can carry, and I can demand certain things. And I've always been uncomfortable with that, but I do admit that there have been times when I have thrown it down when needful. Like my escort really wanted to try out for 5th group. So I'm going to let the colonel know that that's what's going on.
That's awesome. And in old Chicago, you can get you got to drink 100 beers to get on the wall or whatever there. So I don't think they got that night, but they probably got a good.
You know what? It was probably close. I mean, I think they made up for lost time. I don't even, and there were a couple that had to be
helped.
Yeah. They found the booth to be very comfortable. A booth, someplace to be very comfortable.
And that was happening all over Clarksville at that time when people were coming home. That deployment was rough.
Yeah.
We lost 66 dudes just in our brigade.
Yeah.
People in our brigade and attached to our brigade at the time. It was rough. Every unit lost someone, which is not normal. It's usually mostly the warfighters, the infantry guys, the engineers, but every single unit lost somebody during that deployment, and it hit everybody hard. When we got off, and we had I think it was the Gold Star ceremony when we all were finally home, and I looked and I seen a young widow. She had to be maybe 19 years old. That's what made it all real to me right there.
Mm.
I mean, losing Michael, it was real, but it still was part of the job. We understood it. Seeing that young wife, that young spouse, knowing that at 19 years old, she's now a widow for the rest of her life.
I know who it is that you're referring to. And yeah, she's a remarkable young woman. She is doing well in life now.
Thank God.
She's doing well in life.
That's what opened it. It was me and I think 2 other Sergeant First Classes. We looked and that just kind of got us right there, seeing how and knowing that we lead young men, but we don't look at them as little kids. We look at them as men. So and then you see it in the big face. So yeah.
And it was a real wedding, and it was a real marriage, and it wasn't a Victory Boulevard bride. She was the real thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Remarkable young woman.
Thank you for sharing your story, and of course Andrew's heroism with us, and Sergeant Felipe Pereira, who became a Nashville police officer after getting out of a strike. I'm not sure if he's doing that now or if he's moved on to bigger and better things, but I know he was doing great things down there. And I remember that day I was on the gate that day, building the gate to protect the colonel, and we got that call, and I remember reading that same after action report and just thinking, could we defend that at our base? Could we do that the way we're set up? Because the way we were set up and spread out, it would be a lot harder. They had a lot of hard chargers and a lot of hard fighters at that COP, and we're able to repel and fight for each other, with each other to get through that.
Yeah, it was it's the stuff that you see in movies and, was it Military Channel? Military Channel did a POV episode on that, and I knew it was coming, and I knew it was going to happen. That was a couple of years later, so I had been at the brigade the brigade memorial, the battalion memorial, brigade memorial. I'd been at the change of command ceremony that summer, and others. I was at Felipe's Distinguished Service Cross. He is going to remain one of the greatest honors that this boy, this man, he asked me if I would be there to represent Andrew at his Distinguished Service Cross with his family. And he has still a special place in my heart. His oldest son is named for Andrew.
Wow.
Carries his middle name. And Felipe is doing well, and he and his wife are wonderful, lovely people. I adore them. Could not be more grateful to know them. all of the different ceremonies and all of those different things that I had gone to in those first days. And it wasn't until probably the second year, and to this day, I still receive change of command notices from Fort Campbell. I still receive all of that from 1st 502nd, from the 101st. Not just, like Survivor Outreach Services there. No, I still get that. When they say Army Family for Life, they do mean it. And that's been impactful. And again, that's another piece that has given me the ability to stand. And it was probably about 2 years afterwards that I realized just how significant that whole deployment was for so many of you guys.
Yes.
That it was, that's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen again and again and again. Yes. And I still, is part of what motivated me in the next, within a year, I'd always been a writer, but then I started writing, and I started writing for a local newspaper. They wanted to do they called them blogospheres, but it was, you were for the paper or you were for this news organization, and it was opinion pieces. Okay. And I started doing that, and then I started doing it more and more on the stories that I was hearing from the guys. Because initially it was from guys in his unit, and then it was from other units. And then as I started writing and it was being read different places, then I was picked up by the Tribune, and I was doing it for the Tribune for several years. So it's being read the more I wrote, the more stories that I got, because people would contact me and I would hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I intended to write from the military perspective and addressing that military and civilian divide. You see a news story, and I don't know if you can really do this. You'd have to find somebody in your circle that is far enough outside of your circle. You watch a news story, and what is the civilian reaction to that news story, and what is the military or the veteran reaction to that news story? It's going to be very different. And the veteran reaction is the one that actually matters, because not just because you know some things that most civilians don't, and you have a context that most civilians can't fathom. If we don't recognize and understand what that context is, what that veteran context is, we're failing our veterans. And we are judging them instead from this civilian perspective. So my intent early on was to kind of turn the tables on that and judging the civilian world from the veteran perspective, from the military perspective. And it significantly changed some conversations. And it was a real learning curve for me. And the more I was writing, and then the more stories came up, the more I started researching, and the more I started researching, the more disgusted I became with how we're not caring for our veterans. Do you remember the first time you heard the term moral injury?
The first time I heard moral injury was on my show 8 months ago. Up until then, I just didn't think anything of the separation of moral injury from PTSD. I never thought of the difference between them until we had I think it was a therapist, actually, a hypnotherapist came on and talked to us about it.
So I'm a little bit of a renegade in this. I find the concept of moral injury, as we describe it in my field, incredibly offensive to the veteran and the first responder world, because that moral injury is defined from a civilian context. And as long as we're looking at it from that civilian context, it's going to be a problem. So we are pathologizing, and we are putting a problem where there really wasn't one. The piece that we don't address of PTSD is grief. Yeah. It's grieving the loss of who you were. It's grieving the loss of not just your brothers. It's grieving the loss of the worldview that you once held. It's grieving a loss of innocence. It's all of these layers of grief. That's what moral injury was. So back in those first days when I was trying to reach out to his unit, I was talking to the different guys and all of that. Back in those days, what I was trying to address, or what I was trying to express, was this concept now that I have the words for. I went back to school to learn the jargon, to get the letters after my name so that I had more gravitas when I spoke, and that I could speak the language to the mental health community about, hey, we're doing this really not in a good way. But it's not moral injury, guys. It's grief, because the actions that you take, the things that you see, are an offense to civilian sensibilities and everything we think of as a civilized society. And yet a moral injury would be to not act in that moment. That would be the true moral injury. There is a grief when you see man's inhumanity to man, what the enemy does to its own people, what others do. When you see those things, that is, again, it's not a moral injury. To me, that is a grief, because there is this delusion, or to be pleasant, nicer about it, illusion, that we all in the West, we all in this society live under, that this is the way people behave, that this is the way society works, and all of these things. And then when you see firsthand, no, it's not. Humans are way more savage than we pretend we are in our sanitized, pasteurized, homogenized world here. And that shattering and breaking of that illusion is, I don't call that a moral injury. I call that a grief. And we don't address that. And I think that that's one of the the unresolved pieces.
For a long time, they didn't want to address PTS in general, especially with anyone above a PFC, probably. Because then although that specialist corporal on up, they were no longer, in their mind, they weren't a leader. So it was kind of just pushed aside. You don't have anything wrong with you. Just keep pushing forward and keep fighting. You got this. Change your socks, drink water, go do the obstacle course. It'll make you feel better. Or do an AMRAP, as many reps as possible in an hour. That'll make you feel good. And then when that didn't make you feel good, you went to the other things. You went to the drinking. You went to doing other alternatives to make yourself feel better. Until this evolution came where, maybe there is a problem. And maybe we should start addressing it before they deploy. Maybe start doing the whole soldier, which they started this in probably 2000, right after I got out, 16 probably. They started doing the mental health within the brigades, within the battalions, and the whole soldier concept became a logical way to move forward. And I believe it's working a lot better now. Some people say the change in the military is different, but it's always going to change. We were different than the people before us. So the Vietnam veterans that look back and seen us in there, look at those young kids. They don't know what we went through. And then we can look back now and say, look at them young kids. But they're still the same. We were the same young kids doing what we're told to do and doing a job that we volunteered to do. And they're still doing it. And up till last week, getting to train those young kids and looking out into those faces, I just see me and my brothers out there laughing at the instructor. That's what I see when I look out there. I said, it's just another evolution of us in different uniforms. That's all they're doing now. Different uniforms, and they can do different things with their hair than we were allowed to do. And have hair. So it's a lot different in that aspect for me, but you get used to it, you get over it. And now seeing that they've seen the change needs to happen and addressing those needs now before it becomes a bigger issue later, I think is going to be a big help for this generation.
I hear you, and I agree with what you're saying. And I'm glad I've been hearing a little bit about it, but I'm, enough removed from a base or from an installation so that I don't really see those changes that have come out in the last, 8-10 years. But another context that I see is the kids that you're seeing in the military now, the kids that are joining now, they were born into a country at war. And conversations about the toll of war, conversations about mental health have become much more mainstream and acceptable in general. It is, there was a time when, I've got a couple of decades on you, Rich, but there was a time when I remember being shocked as a kid that they were talking about feminine hygiene products on a TV commercial. It was not done.
Right.
Right. It's just, And then, that is completely normal. So these kids have grown up in a world where talking about mental health is normal. It isn't a stigma. It isn't a negative. It isn't a problem. If anything, there's a segment of society that it's become almost a fad to have anxiety or, to mislabel things. Oh, people are bipolar. And it's like, yeah, you have no idea what that actually means to just throw it around or, those things. The upside of it, though, is that everybody can benefit from mental health help. Everybody can benefit from the conversations. There's not a stigma. There are very few people nowadays, I think, that would be particularly ashamed to say that, they're anxious. Who said anxious 30 years ago?
Nobody.
Right. And now being anxious, everyone knows, what, take a couple of breaths, just slow down for a moment, let your heart slow down. This is normal and it's been normalized. And that is, I think, a direct consequence of us being at war for more than 20 years and that it being on the news all of the time and post-traumatic stress. I mean, the media still says post-traumatic stress disorder. It still says that in the DSM-5. I personally say post-traumatic stress injury because it is a physiological, biological injury of the nervous system that fight, flight, fright, and freeze response is driven by, toxic chemicals in our bodies that are toxic to our bodies, and it damages the nerve endings. So you're always in the trigger is always on or always off, or it's on a hair trigger. And it's just a simple consequence of a physiological, biological injury. And given the right support, the body can heal itself, given the right support. And I think that that's a conversation. I've been saying it for literally probably 13 years. Wow. I've been saying post-traumatic stress injury. Once I understood what it was, and like I said, I was a dork. I still am. And I like to read things like Journal of American Medical Association and psychology and psychiatry and neurology, and I'm just a geek. So reading that and understanding what exactly is happening in a post-traumatic stress episode, so to speak, learning what that is, it was an injury. And it was also a big difference because people will still say, well, he's a PTSD ticking time bomb. No. Someone with post-traumatic stress is more likely to curl up in a ball in a corner than they are to become aggressive. It's just facts. If you're in a fugue state, it's a little bit different, of course, or it can be different, but we still see way too much misuse and misunderstanding that creates additional stigma. That, veterans are all broken. Veterans are all that, veterans are evolved civilians. Yes. You can walk in the civilian world. A civilian cannot walk in your world.
And I think that broken veteran thing gets exasperated by organizations that make money off that term, like WWP or insert any other name. For a while, that was their bread and butter to get their funding, because we help broken veterans. And then they put those pictures up with you get a blanket if you donate because this guy's broken on the screen. And a lot of people shied away from them because of that. A lot of veterans. Yeah. Shot away. But a lot of civilians think that's the way to go, and that's why they give them all that money. And you have a lieutenant general a retired lieutenant general making X amount of money now to be the head of the organization, living off that false narrative.
Well, and I hear you, and I agree with you, and I've got pretty probably harsh thoughts on all of it. And, hey, I'm a psychotherapist, so two things at the same time. Two things can be true at the same time. So yes, all of this that we're saying, I absolutely hold that to be true. And I also know that there are a lot of people in these organizations that genuinely believe they're doing the right thing and helping. So their motivations are pure, they're altruistic and all of that stuff. So I do believe that that is true as well. I'm trying to not be completely and totally cynical, which is what I want to be, but I'm trying not to be completely and totally cynical about all of it, about the VA, about all of these entities that exist, because you guys are all broken and you're damaged. Yep. And then we as civilians, we have to beat our chests and rend our clothes and tear our hair out because we did it to you. And the moral injury that we inflicted upon you, this irritates me a bit.
I couldn't tell. I could not tell that at all. But thank you for being honest about it. And that'd be another good show just to have you talk about that side.
It is truly my passion. It is
passion.
It is the passion, and it is, I think it's truly why whatever graces that I was given early on and the ways of my, connecting with people and all of those things that really shouldn't necessarily have happened, but did. I think that I was given those opportunities and those opportunities to see so that I would do something with it. And I believe that what I'm doing with my life now is, I can't say that it's my purpose. I can't say that it's my reason for existence, because I had one of those and it's gone. And I think that, each and every day that I wake up and it's like, okay, well, that purpose is gone. What's today going to bring? And I think a piece of that, what today is going to bring is this. This is what I'm supposed to do. I joke that I can pretty much say and do anything I want to because I've got nothing left to lose. What are you going to do? Take my firstborn? Oh, already did that. So go for it. It makes you a little bit maybe reckless, but fearless too. A little bit reckless at times.
One of the lesses.
Yeah. And I can honestly believe with my whole heart, and I can say that Andrew wouldn't want me any other way.
That's what my next sentence was going to be. That's exactly how he would want you to be. Right? He wouldn't want you to stop. He'd want you to keep pushing and helping others the way you are, advocating, even though that wasn't your goal in life to advocate, but this pivot, like Ross said, to get you to now advocate for his brothers that he fought with, my brothers and sisters that I served with, that don't want to speak up about stuff, but they need that voice of reason over here yelling on their shoulder, hey, that ain't right. Go this way, do this. And you're that voice of reason now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, that kid would haunt me. The house, we'd be making an Amityville story about it. He would definitely haunt me if I didn't.
It's like
yeah. I just think about all the mischief that he got into when he was here, and with, I guess the unlimited powers and resources that you have in the afterlife and all that. But man, I'd be in trouble.
He doesn't need a credit card in the afterlife. So
yeah,
you be creative.
Yeah.
Denise, thank you for spending the last hour and almost 40 minutes just chatting about Andrew, his life, his legacy, and now your advocation and your motivation moving forward. I appreciate you jumping in and taking a slot tonight, and of course hooking me up with Greg for Friday. So thank you for all that.
He's a great person, and I appreciate you, and I will say you're welcome, and I will say no. You're the one that gets my thanks, and the list of reasons is very, very long. You were a brother to my dear friend Lisa's son, and for that you get my thanks. You took the time standing there on the street in Gatlinburg and connected with me, and for that you get my thanks. for the advocacy that you do and the venue that you provide for so many voices to come out. And personally, for letting me talk about Andrew in all of the good ways. And yeah, they're hard stories, but they're important stories. And it's important that I want people to hear it's okay to talk about the hard stuff. And I so very much appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
My honor, and no problem. Anytime you want to come back on and share the therapist side of it and help the other brothers and sisters out there that need that knock in the head, come back on, and we'll even if you want to do a round table with another doc or something, we'll do that and have a punch in the head hour.
Punch in the head hour. Okay, you line them up and then we'll take them down.
There we go. There it is, right there. All right, Denise, thank you so much, and then get some sleep. Have a good rest of your week.
And Rich, happy Memorial Day. Celebrate everything they bought for us with their lives. Celebrate. Happy Memorial Day to you and yours.
Thank you, Denise. Have a great night. And
you too.
Anytime you want to come back, you're here. You have that open mic.
Thank you, Rich. Be well.
Have a good night. MisFitNation, thank you for hanging out tonight with me and Denise and learning about Andrew and his legacy, and Denise's legacy now. But remember, if you feel that darkness caving in, don't go alone. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Reach into your wallet, pull out that little card with the 3 names. I tell you to write on there. Call them. Let them know that you're in trouble. Let them help you. If that don't work, call 988. Follow the prompts. If all that doesn't work, contact us. info@themisfitnation.com, Steven@themisfitnation.com, or Jake@themisfitnation.com. We will get you on the phone. We will keep you on the phone until we get someone local to help you, because a day tomorrow with you is 100% better than one without you. Until Friday, our next show with Mr. Greg Roach, United States Navy veteran. Be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.